morning to you, and welcome to How to Fix It. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. As an Irish person, and yes, I am Irish, on my father's side, I'm not too into the commercialization of the holiday to the point that it's just an excuse for non-Irish people to get blackout drunk one day a year. Real Irish people don't need an excuse or a specific day to get blackout drunk. But there is one tradition that I've always kept around St. Patrick's Day since I was a kid, aside from corned beef and cabbage sandwiches on rye. A little Disney Channel original movie called The Luck of the Irish. It's notable to me not so much because it particularly impacted me as a child. To tell the truth, I only ever watched it once a year. But because it was my first exposure to the brilliance that is Timothy O'Munson, who, aside from being Carlton Lassiter on Psych, played the one true king to rule them all, King Richard in Gallivant. And you all know how I feel about Gallivant. I try to watch the movie every year, but it's only ever played the week of, so I've never been able to do a video on it when it's properly themed. Until now. So, is Luck of the Irish a DCOM classic like Minutemen, or is it a disaster like Return to Halloween Town? Let's find out. The movie centers around Kyle Johnson, a kid with incredibly good luck. He gets good grades without studying, always makes shots in basketball, and it's all thanks to his lucky charm, a coin he keeps around his neck. His school is having a Heritage Day, which inspires Kyle to look into his family's roots, but his parents are being pretty shady in regards to their heritage, just telling him that his dad is from Cleveland and that they're Americans. I feel like they might be criminals wherever they come from. Might be better for Kyle to not pry into this that much. He goes digging using the early 2000s internet and the help of his friend Bonnie, and finds that his family isn't on the internet. He goes to an Irish fair with his other friend Russell after seeing a poster for it with an identical symbol to the one on his lucky coin, and he gets sucked into Irish step dancing. And I don't mean like he's sucked into watching it. I mean, he can fluently dance in a style that he's never danced in before. That lucky coin is awesome. He also meets a strange old man, and before he leaves, his lucky coin is stolen, swapped with a duplicate, and he begins to have the worst luck ever, missing every shot in basketball, along with starting to transform, shrinking and gaining pointed ears, along with talking in a brogue. But the ears are a benefit, because with elf ears he can hear really well like Legolas. His mother also turns super-duper Irish, like borderline stereotype old-world turn-of-the-century Irish, culminating with her shrinking to less than a foot tall. It turns out that the coin, the O'Reilly coin, was a charm that not only gave the luck of the clan when the youngest family member held it, but also allowed leprechauns to pass as human. And it turns out that his mother is a leprechaun, and that makes him half leprechaun. At first, they suspect that the person who stole the coin was the old man, his grandfather, who his parents have a feud with, since his grandfather didn't approve of his mother marrying a human, and who just so happens to own a potato chip factory that his school is sending a field trip to. You know, I took a screenwriting class last semester, and I feel like this would have gotten a bad grade because everything is coming way too easy. Kyle goes after his grandfather, sneaking into the factory with Bonnie, but finds out that he's being affected as well, and that the culprit is really an evil leprechaun who is after the coin's power, Seamus McTiernan, the person who performed Irish Step at the fair. They go after him to steal the coin back and get it, but Seamus captures Grandpa. The only way to stop Seamus is to make a wager with him and compete at sports. And if Kyle wins, he gets his grandfather and the coin back, but if Kyle loses, Seamus gets the coin and they can't try to steal it back. Seamus pits them in traditional Celtic sports and some Irish step, and they end up at a tie, and since Kyle didn't win, it means that Seamus gets the coin. For the tiebreaker, Kyle bets that he can beat Seamus at basketball without his luck, and Seamus will be banished forever to the land of Kyle's father and can never leave the shores of Erie, which Seamus agrees to. They win, though Russell throws the winning shot and Kyle gets his coin and grandfather back. But Seamus starts to gloat, saying that he doesn't need the coin and he's still got all his stuff back home since he's banished to the shores of Era, an Irish island, which he says that Kyle keeps pronouncing wrong. But Kyle tells him that Seamus is wrong. The land of Kyle's father is Erie. Lake Erie, because, as Kyle says,
my father's from Cleveland.
Not many movies can pull that off as an epic action movie-esque one-liner, but this movie manages to do it. The film ends with Kyle embracing his heritage and during the Heritage Day celebration, unites everyone in song singing "This Land is Our Land." It's a cute movie. I mean, speaking as a person of Irish descent, I really like all the Irish references in it. Especially their showing of an authentic Irish breakfast. I've got to stop referencing food, it just makes me hungry. It's not offensive, like a lot of other representations of Irish people in pop culture. Plus, what other movie can you say features an Irish Nazi? And if you don't understand that reference, go watch the Blues Brothers movie. You might want to have seen that for a frame of reference in a few weeks or so. Hint, hint. Plus, Timothy O'Munson gives a great performance. It's hammy as shit, but I'll be damned if it doesn't make me love the movie even more. I mean, you don't get more ridiculous than King Richard, so Seamus McTiernan is a far more restrained character. But he's still crazy ridiculous, and it's awesome. O'Munson, as far as I've seen with Psych and Gallivant, never puts in a phoned-in performance. He's always giving it his all, and it always shows. Kyle, for the most part, is one of the more well-rounded Disney Channel original movie protagonists, actually going through a transformation, though his is more so finding out about his lost heritage than it is an actual change of himself, but I can only presume that he did learn to appreciate his good luck since he knows what it's like to not have it. It's also pretty cool that Russell got to throw the winning shot. Usually the protagonist gets to have all the fun and the sidekick is just comic relief, but Russell actually gets the credit for saving the day, though it was Kyle's ingenious bet, twisting the words like Seamus did, that twisted the figurative sort. Plus, that whole
"We moved here from Cleveland."
We're from Cleveland.
I'm from Cleveland.
running gag is incredibly stupid, but it still got a chuckle out of me. It's also an interesting approach to the competition to decide the winner, where they get to explore both sides of the coin, so to speak, the caber tossing and basketball. And I've gotta say, the effects, mainly for the shrinking of Kyle's mother and Seamus at the end, weren't all that bad. Even the gold vortex effects holds up pretty well over a decade later. According to Internet Reviewer Law 348, Section 5, subsection 17, I am legally required to inform you that the show will return after these short messages. I am also legally required to tell you that we're back, in accordance with Internet Reviewer Law 348, Section 6, subsection 3. The dialogue is garbage. A lot of it is very stagey, sort of like the dialogue in those SNL sketches about the high school theater shows. And like I said in the summary, there's too much plot convenience. Too many things come too easy. I mean, his grandfather just so happens to have a factory in the same town that he lives in, and his school sent a field trip there on the exact day that he wanted to sneak into it. If he had still had the coin, that would have made sense, but he's supposed to have lost his luck, and that's still pretty damn lucky. They also write off the really weird stuff for a while before they get wise. Like, his mother and himself shrinking is just an allergic reaction. Why does he buy that? It's like, listen, I get it, weird stuff is happening and they can't just come out and tell him without some prodding, but she's smaller than a shoe. There is no allergy on Earth that does that, even if you are a leprechaun. Why didn't they immediately jump to something possibly inhibiting the coin or something? An anti-luck field or something? Hey, if anti-magic can exist, then anti-luck can work too. I mean, they were so immediately positive that it was his grandfather who stole it, and they knew that he was in town, so why not assume that he had done something the moment things started being weird? I don't get why his parents didn't just tell him that he was a leprechaun, or at least that he was Irish. I get that they wanted him to be normal, but so what if he's a leprechaun? It would have made him a lot more protective of the coin at least, and he wouldn't have lost it. I mean, that was a thing with a lot of these Disney Channel movies. Marnie didn't know she was a witch. The kid from the 13th year didn't know he was a merman. Things would be so much easier if parents just communicated with their kids. I mean, they treat being a magical creature like being adopted. I'll tell them when they're ready is not a good policy for magic. I mean, think about it. Superheroes were outlawed in The Incredibles, and Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl still told their kids, especially since Kyle's parents also changed their damn names to escape the grandfather. Just tell him that he's Irish and that his grandfather hates his parents for the mixed marriage. Also, the entire theme about heritage is sort of stupid. I mean, it barely factors into it with the Heritage Day stuff. It could have easily just been Kyle being curious on his own, or maybe Russell having some heritage things happen that made Kyle want to pry into it. All it really does is jumpstart his journey and give us that weirdly out-of-place musical number at the end. First of all, I'd make the dialogue seem a lot more realistic. They don't talk like regular people, and that's a big hampering, since it's a lot of contrived dialogue. I also would have done away with the Heritage Day thing and changed it to be a simpler reason for researching his family history. Family tree project for school or something. It's simpler and gets rid of the weird musical number. I also would have had his parents willingly give up the Irish stuff to him, let him go to the Irish fair, lose the coin, and then have to explain the magic stuff. It would have made it so that it wasn't so contrived, and they wouldn't have had to do the pretend everything's okay, and then his mom magically shrinks thing. And I would have also had his grandfather building the factory in order to track down Seamus McTiernan to stop him from stealing the coin. Maybe they had a feud in the past, and that's why a factory is just by chance in his town. It would have also explained why he was at the fair and talked with Kyle, because he was gauging if he still had the coin or not, knowing that Seamus was close by. Other than those minor story changes to make it a little less convenient, it's a pretty solid movie. And that was The Luck of the Irish. Was it bad? No, but it's no Halloween Town either. It's a pretty good St. Patrick's Day movie, even if it doesn't involve March 17th at all, and it does feature some pretty decent messages about the Irish and the plights that they went through both in Ireland and when they came to America. Sure, it's got problems, but ones that don't really hamper the enjoyment of the movie. Honestly, on the spectrum of Disney Channel original movies, it's one of the better ones. Plus, it holds nostalgic value for me, since it's one of the rare Disney Channel movies that my entire immediate family sat around to watch when it was on. Was there a lot to fix? Not really, though I really only made this to justify watching the movie. The Luck of the Irish is a pretty decent movie which features a brilliant performance from nearly the entire cast, though special notice has to be given to Al Munson and Henry Gibson. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of How to Fix It, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time. confession to make. What's going on? Is this what that private conversation with Maverick was about? I'm sick. It's a form of molecular degradation. In short, I'm dying. You're dying? Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to know about it until I had a solution for my condition. I was projecting my own insecurities onto you. I still harbor some guilt over the Man in Black because I started working on it before I was split in half by the transporter accident, and with the way that you've been about the Man in Black the last couple months, it just made me feel worse about myself than the degradation already was. Like Xano, you know I don't blame you for that. I know I've had my problems with the Man in Black, but I'm working through them. But back to you, I want to know everything about your sickness. Start at the beginning. Well, it all starts back in 2013. As you are well aware, transporter accidents are supposed to eventually be reversed, at least in cases like mine, where the split was through aspects of personality. We're not supposed to be able to exist without the other half, emotionally or physically. However, we managed to adapt, both me and my double. I figured that we were both free of each other, permanently. However, in early 2014, around the time that your mirror double stole the hard drive, I started feeling fatigued. I never noticed that. I tried to hide it when you were around. I didn't know what was wrong. I figured it was a side effect of the accident, and I thought I had solved it shortly after it started, a mix of certain chemicals to make a restorative serum. It worked pretty well, until recently. What happened to make it stop working? I'm not exactly sure. I think it's that the longer that we've been separated, the worse it's gotten, and now the serum isn't enough to keep my body stable. I've had to start using a localized stasis field in order to stabilize myself. So your body is breaking down because it isn't whole. That is a simpler way of putting it. The transporter broke us down into our constituent molecules and then reassembled two halves out of a pattern designed out of one person. It only had enough matter to recreate the original, but was forced to create two identical halves. It had to fudge the fine details. Now, however, the pattern can no longer sustain itself, and my body is slowly breaking down. IOTA estimates that I don't have any longer than 10 months or so. Wait a minute. Is this also going to happen to your double? Most likely, though it's going to be much worse for him. For me, it was very slow and drawn out. For him, I can only assume it will be a fast and steep decline. I've been dealing with this for 3 years. 3 years of degradation in a matter of months could prove disastrous. Do you have a cure? I do. That's what Maverick brought over a couple weeks ago. I sent him my plans and had his lab tech run simulations for me. So what is it? It's a rather simple technique of using the transporter and the pattern buffer to essentially recreate the accident, but in reverse. I get transported and placed in the buffer. Then we would have to place a suitable undamaged pattern onto my own, which would restore my body. And then I would get transported back, and I should be good as new. Where are you going to get the undamaged pattern? From one of my doubles from around the multiverse. All we have to do is beam him up unawares, and then instantly beam him back after copying his pattern. You're just doing it without his consent? I don't want to risk the Man in Black or my double potentially spying on us and finding out about the plan. It may cause my double to do something rash in order to save himself. If I do it quickly without anyone knowing, there's much less risk for everyone involved. Wait. Why don't you just use my pattern, or Maverick's? You know that you'll have our consent. Trust me, that was my first plan, but we don't have the same quantum signature, so our patterns are incompatible. Why? See, different universes have different physical laws, and some universes have slightly different elemental makeups in the air, the water, etc. My universe has some elements that your universe lacks, and while it doesn't affect me living here, your pattern won't contain certain elements that my body needs to survive, and so I can't overlay the pattern onto my body. Same with Maverick's. How long will it take to do it? That's the tricky part. I've been scanning the multiverse for weeks, but I haven't been able to find a suitable double to harvest a pattern from. That's without Iota. I'll get him working on this and we'll find one soon enough. That is true. There's also a modification I have to make to the transporter. This experiment is going to be a massive power drain. And I don't want to knock out security when I do it, so it's going to have to be done manually, with no connection to Iota or any of the automatic systems. And if it has to be done manually, I want you at the controls. There's no one I trust more. But if it's disconnected from Iota and something happens, it's on me. Like I said, there's no one I trust more. I should be okay for the next few weeks until my condition deteriorates again. Alright, let's get to work.